Hey everybody, welcome. Wanted to start out with chapter 5 on the pre-operational stage. So there's a few videos that show some of these pre-operational stages that were good, and would like to have given you something as an overall explanation first. So here we go.
Piaget's theory argues that we have to conquer 4 stages of cognitive development.
Can you tell?
Piaget's theory argues that we have to conquer 4 stages of cognitive development. First, the sensory motor stage. Second, the pre-operational stage. Third, the concrete operational stage. And fourth, the formal operational stage. Only once we have gone through all the stages, at what age can vary, we are able to reach full human intelligence. 1. The sensory motor stage, ages birth to 2. In the sensory motor stage, we develop through experiences and movement our 5 senses. Our brain wants to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch as much as possible. First, we start with simple reflexes, and soon after, we develop our first habits. From 4 months old, we become aware of things beyond our own body, and then as we get older, we learn to do things intentionally. A key milestone is the development of working memory, or in Piaget terms, our realization of object permanence. Before that, our mum could show and then hide a teddy, and we would think it's gone. After, we understand that objects continue to exist, even when we can't see them. We start becoming curious about everything. We want to smell flowers, taste food, listen to sounds, and talk to strangers. To explore more, we move. We learn to sit, crawl, stand, walk, and even to run. This increased physical mobility consequently leads to increased cognitive development. But we remain egocentric, meaning we can perceive the world only from our own point of view. 2. The pre-operational stage, ages 2 to 7. Our thinking is mainly categorized through symbolic functions and intuitive thoughts. We have lots of fantasies and believe objects are alive. As we are not able to apply specific cognitive operations, Piaget calls this stage pre-operational. We learn to speak and understand that words, images, and gestures are symbols for something else. When we draw our family, we are not concerned about drawing each person to scale, but rather with their symbolic meanings. We love to play pretend, which allows us to experience something new and learn a lot. At around age 4, most of us become very curious and ask many questions. We want to know everything. We can call it the birth of primitive reasoning. Piaget calls it the intuitive age, because while we realize that we have a vast amount of knowledge, we have no idea how we acquired it. Our thinking in this stage is still pretty egocentric. We think others see the world like we do, and still don't understand that they see it differently. 3. The concrete operational stage, ages 7 to 11. We finally discover logic, and we develop concrete cognitive operations, such as sorting objects in a certain order. One example of this is inductive reasoning, which means that if we see someone eating a cookie, we can draw a conclusion and then make a generalization. And we now get the concept of conservation. We understand that if we pour orange juice from a normal glass to a taller one, the amount stays the same. Our younger sister will pick the taller glass, thinking she gets more. By the same logic, we only now can understand that if 3 plus 5 equals 8, then 8 minus 3 must equal 5. Our brain learns to rearrange our thoughts, to classify and build concrete operational mental structures. For example, we now know that we can reverse an action by doing the opposite. Excited by our new mental abilities, we apply them in conversations, activities, when we learn to write, and in school. As a result, we get to know ourselves better. We begin to understand that our thoughts and feelings are unique and not necessarily those of others. That means that we learn to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. 4. The formal operational stage, age 12 plus. Once we become teenagers, we become formally operational. We now have the ability to think more rationally about abstract concepts and hypothetical events. Our advanced cognitive abilities allow us to understand abstract concepts such as success and failure, love and hate. We form a deeper understanding of our own identity and our morality. We now also think that we understand why people behave the way they behave, and as a result, can become more compassionate. Our brain can now do deductive reasoning, which means we can compare two statements and reach a logical generalization. Our new mental skills allow us to plan our life systematically and prioritize, and we can make assumptions about events that have no necessary relation to reality. We can now also philosophize and just think about thinking itself. Our new sense for our identity now also creates egocentric thoughts, and some start to see an imaginary audience watching them all the time. Piaget believed in lifelong learning, but insisted that the formal operational stage is the final stage of our cognitive development. Jean Piaget's first interests were animals, and he published his first scientific paper on albino sparrows in 1907, when he was just 11 years old. In 1920, he began working with standardized intelligence tests. He realized that younger children consistently make types of mistakes that older children do not. He concluded that they must think differently, and spent the rest of his life studying the intellectual development of children.
All right, so with those, and with being said, getting into some of these videos about how children think differently, and this is a good one. I'll probably show a lot of these in the next several days.
When you look at these two glasses, do you think that they have the same amount of juice? You think they're the same? Okay. Now we're going to pour this juice into this glass. Now, do you think that this glass has more juice? This glass has more juice, or the same amount? This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more?
Because it's taller.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more quarters, or do they have the same?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all the same.
They're the same?
5, 5.
Okay. Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more, or do they have the same?
This one has more.
That one has more quarters?
Yeah.
Why does this row have more quarters?
Because it's more far away.
It's more far away?
Yeah, it's more far away than that. Looks bigger.
All right, we're gonna play a game with the graham crackers, and we're gonna share them between me and you, okay? Okay. Do you think that we shared those fairly? No, why not?
You share, you have those and I have this.
Well, what if we try this? Okay, can I put this down right there? Now is it fair? Yeah, why is it fair now?
Because we both have two.
So as you can see, even though
I love when these two times right.
the little girl thought that those were the same, they were smaller sizes, but early on, you're not able to see those differences. So here's one at stage 3, so they can
Do you think there's
reverse.
the same amount of juice in this glass as there's in that glass? There you go. Okay, so we're gonna take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one right here. Okay, so now we're gonna look at this glass and that glass. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass, more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do you think that they have the same amount?
Just because it's a skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount. It has the same amount of juice in it, but this one is just wider and this one's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice.
So she was able to see the differences and explain it.
According to Jean Piaget, children enter the pre-operational stage of cognitive development during the preschool years. Their thinking changes dramatically in that they now have the capacity to think symbolically, using words or objects to represent something else.
Sarah and Jill dress up and have a tea party. Later, they feed their dog. 4-year-old Jared pretends he is a spy kid and chooses an appropriate costume.
What are you gonna do? You should have done that.
Todd and Jared show further increases in mental representation. They engage in what Piaget called symbolic play, clearly imagining that blocks they're playing with are something else. In this case, a building.
Despite these increases in cognitive skills, the thought processes of pre-operational children result in characteristic errors in reasoning. One of the most easily observed deficiencies is the tendency to view the world only from one's own perspective, a phenomenon that Piaget termed egocentrism. Because of egocentric thinking, pre-operational children hide by covering their eyes or only parts of their bodies, believing that if they can't see the seeker, then they themselves can't be seen.
Other pre-operational reasoning errors result from thinking that is intuitive rather than logical. For example, preschool children are incapable of conservation. They do not understand that certain properties of objects, such as volume or mass, do not change just because the superficial appearance of the object changes. When given two of Piaget's famous conservation tasks, Olivia, Deborah, Jacob, Christopher, and Jack illustrate this lack of understanding.
Is there the same amount in each one of those glasses?
So these are explaining how like kids at this age, super young, like think differently. It's called the pre-operational stage. So like kids can't tell volume and measurements and things totally well until they're almost 7. So it's kind of
I'm gonna take this one. Right. Is there the same amount in each glass now?
No.
Which one has more? So this one has,
more than this one.
They're all for sure too.
Yeah.
I say, if that one is bigger than the mountain smaller, that one has the most.
does that look like the same amount of Play-Doh? Each one's the same one? Go like this. Or actually, no. Does that look like it's the same amount still? Which one's more?
That one,
So they all do this. It's not like they're dumb.
that one. Yep, this one. This one.
Pre-operational children are not only tied to their perceptions, they are also unable to decenter their thinking or think about more than one aspect of a problem at a time. Their thinking also shows what Piaget called irreversibility. They are unable to reverse or mentally undo an action. The following responses to the question, why do they no longer have the same amount, illustrate these limitations in pre-operational thinking. Deborah, age 3.
Sorry.
What's
It's
that?
like similar to like when babies, like they don't realize like when you play I got your nose and
Yeah.
actually take their nose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that and even peekaboo, they're saying it's the egocentrism. Like they think if they go like this, that you can't see them either.
Yeah.
Like I even remember in first grade, I don't know how old you are in first grade, but I was bad. So I would sit in the front row and the teacher made me sit in the front row. And for some reason I thought that if I still aimed my head at the teacher, but I was looking at the ceiling, I was like this. I was for sure, like she thought because my head was that way that like I want to get in trouble. And she's like, John, pay attention. So I was testing them at a young age. I guess you're 6.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. I thought if I just aimed my head and my eyes, but she saw that I was like, I just didn't want to pay attention. So
Christopher, age 4.5.
Is this one higher than this one?
Jack, age 5.
Guys, this one's low and this one's tall.
Olivia, age 3.
That one is up, down, and down.
Deborah, age 3.
Because it's squish.
Jacob, age 4.
Because you smush that one down, not that one. That one has a mush.
As children move into the concrete operational stage of middle childhood, they are no longer fooled by appearances.
So there's a series of these videos they kind of show, which is
When you look at these two glasses, do you think that they have the same amount of juice? You think they're the same? Okay. Now we're gonna pour this juice into this glass. Now, do you think that this glass has more juice? This glass has more juice, or do you think that they have the same amount?
That one has more.
This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more?
Because it's taller.
so even with dimes and
Okay,
quarters, they
ready?
do the same thing.
Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more quarters, or do they have the same?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They look the same.
They're the same?
5, 5.
She's like,
Okay.
duh.
Right.
Why are you asking such a dumb question? Exactly the same.
Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more, or do they have the same?
This one has more.
That one has more quarters?
Yeah.
Why does this row have more quarters?
Because it's more far away.
It's more far away.
Yeah, it's like more far away than that. Looks like bigger.
And she even counted them.
All right, we're gonna play a game with the graham crackers, and we're gonna share them between me and you,
This is
okay?
kind of funny, actually.
Do you think that we shared those fairly? No, why not?
You share. You have those now.
Well, what if we try this? Okay, can I put this down there? Now is it fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it fair now?
Because we both have two.
I think I would play with my little brother at that age too, so I would like get the bigger piece of cake or whatever it was. Like, you got 2 pieces, man? Come on, quit your, So they don't have the concept of conservation and quantity. That's kind of what it was. And there's a lot of good videos, and there was another one that explains how they don't even see, it's the egocentrism. So they're not able to see, and I'll have to go back to the PowerPoint, the difference. So they can't distinguish others' perspective from their own. It's the 3 mountain problem. So have you ever heard of the 3 mountain problem? It's okay if you haven't.
I think I did like a couple of years ago in class.
Okay. So maybe you've already seen this. Are you a psych major?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you guys, well, you have a developmental class then too.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably should put something like Piaget in there. Or it'll be like, you want to hike a mountain? There it is. This one's really cute, actually. Have you seen this one? It's really kind of cute.
New babies aren't quite sure what happens to objects when they leave their sight. Sky's mom keeps disappearing and reappearing. No wonder peekaboo is so much fun. During their first year, however, infants will learn an important concept: object permanence. Everything has a life of its own, even if it is out of sight.
At Maya's age, babies know to look for the object, but they might not have everything else straight. 10-month-old Simon is about to make a classic mistake. Although he watched us place the toy plane under the white cloth, he'll look for it where he last found it, not where he watched us hide it.
Can you look at these 2 glasses?
Alright,
Do
so
you
we've
think that they
seen
have the
these.
same amount of juice?
But the 3 mountain problem
You think
kind of
they're the same?
shows.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Now we're gonna pour this.
Looks like baby.
Actually, I'll finish it with this one so you can see.
Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Okay.
So kids' brains think differently at this age, and they aren't able to understand like space and volume and things like that. So they do it with liquids and even here with quarters. And she'd already just counted them. They both have 5, and she said they're both the same.
Okay.
Now they
Does this
spread
row
one.
have more quarters? Does this row have more, or do they have the same?
This one has more.
That one has more quarters?
Yeah.
Why does this row have more?
Because it's more far away.
It's more far away.
It's like more far away than like that. Looks like bigger.
So their brains can't go there. They're just
All right,
like,
we're gonna play a game with the graham crackers, and we're gonna share them between me and you, okay? Okay.
I actually like this one. I want to see it again. Because I used to do this to my little brother. I'd be like, all right, you want to break a cookie in half and share
Do
it?
you think that we shared those fairly? No, why not?
Share.
Well, what if we try this? Can I put this on there? Now is it fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it fair now?
Because we both have to.
Can you tell me what you see when
So
you
this
look
is
at
the 3 mountain problem that's showing the egocentrism, that they're unable to see from her perspective. He can only see from his perspective. And this is all kids, like when they're in this pre-operational stage, like 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
from where you're sitting? What are some of the things that you see?
A cat,
A cat.
and a tree, and a phone.
Okay, now we're gonna do the same thing. Can you tell me what you see when you get from that slope?
An owl.
An owl?
And him.
What is that?
A goat.
A goat?
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything
Yeah, right there.
right there? What is that?
A tree.
A tree.
And another tree.
Another little tree? Right. And can you tell me what I see when I look at this from where I'm sitting right here?
owl,
Okay.
and a goat,
Mm-hmm.
and a little tree, and that, and that.
So this is the next stage, so you can get on to
So that's
7.
what I look at these two cups right here. Do you think there's the same amount of juice in this glass as there in that glass? There you go. Okay, so we're gonna take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one here. Okay, so now we're gonna look at this glass and that one. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass or more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do they have the same amount?
Just because it's skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount.
So she's breaking it down.
It has the same amount of
That was
juice.
older than the other kid.
Right, yeah, so this is the age where she's in stage 3.
It's just.
She can tell the difference already.
It's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice.
So she can tell
It
volume.
says, if you hit a glass with a hammer, the glass will break. And then this one says, Dawn hit a glass with a hammer. So what happened to the glass?
It broke
It broke. Why did it break?
because the hammer's hard.
If you hit a glass with a feather, the glass will glass with a feather. What happened to the glass?
Nothing,
Nothing happened. Why didn't anything happen?
because the feather was flat.
This is stage 4, it's the former operational stage, which is
If you hit a glass with a feather, the glass will break. And the second one, Dawn hit a glass with a feather. What happened to the glass?
It broke.
And why did it break?
Because it was good. If you hit it out with a feather, it break. Because if you hit it out with a feather, it broke.
So that one's interesting, the last part. She's doing abstract thinking, where like she's trying to like follow the riddle, like you hit it with a hammer, it breaks, hit it with a feather, it breaks, and if you hit it with a feather, what happened? And so they're just kind of using abstract thinking. The little kids are like, no, it's not going to break, it's a feather. So it's interesting how the mind develops. It's kind of showing the breakdown of some of the mind games that with little kids. Well, yeah, there's so many different experiments. There's the 3 mountain rule. There's one. So lots of people repeat these experiments and kind of show it. I do want to throw in the idea that like if they are traumatized in like this age or stage, like this could also be delayed too. You know what I mean? Like if there is a trauma going on, or you aren't safe, or taken from your parents, or a parent dies, like it might be hard to develop as normal or as quick because you're grieving or you're traumatized. So the brain kind of goes to freeze mode where you just like panic and kind of survival almost. So the psychological dimensions, there's intuitive thought from 4 to 7 years, which is primitive reasoning, but not formal logic. Example is like the how and the why. And so you saw these conservation problems. They cannot understand that properties of an object will remain the same, even though aspects of it changes. And then there's information processing, that's learning to attend to relevant information. Memory, so problems of storage rather than retrieval. And then there's even infantile amnesia, so no memory before age 3. I feel like that was normal with me. Did you guys remember your first memory and what age it might have been?
Yeah, that was it. My mom said I was like a month before my 3rd birthday.
Okay,
So
you were early.
yeah, and I remember this Thursday, like we didn't find a picture maybe until a couple of years ago, but I was like, yeah, I remember you trying to take a picture of me at my uncle's house, and I had on all these towels, and she was like, I lost that picture, I don't know where it is, but you remember that? And then we found it like 2 years ago, and I was like, this is the picture.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you were swimming or had a bunch of towels wrapped around you?
Yeah, and I remember
Okay.
I was just like,
Right. Was it digital or
one of those like Polaroid.
Okay, yeah.
cameras.
Yep. Okay. And then what was yours?
My mom's chest, probably at like 2 or 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So like she
I
would.
don't really know exactly what age, but I remember just being a baby, and it's always just stuck
Really?
with me.
Because my wife does that every day to put them both to sleep. And now with two, it's hard because like one will go to sleep and then the other will wake up and will wake the other one up. And they're always sleeping. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night. One of them's next to me. And the big one's next to me. Again, we break the rules. You're supposed to be, up until 4 months, it's supposed to be alone, back, and crib, the hbse, so you don't like smash them and cause infant death
Well, I
syndrome.
just stopped sleeping with my mom until I was 11.
Right, okay, okay.
I think every
Right,
parent
yeah.
breaks that rule.
So luckily we have a king size bed and we'll probably both sleep in it until, I mean, it is starting to get tight. Like there's 4 of us in a king size bed, but
It's like when my sister was born, they tried that maybe like the first week, and then my dad was like,
Yes.
nope, we're getting her. Like,
right, yeah. So we made it till where he can hold his head up now. So he could actually, like, I think that's when you're able to lift your head up, and like if you were smothered, you're not going to die from suffocation. So that's exciting. We like got past the tough sudden infant death syndrome. She's sending me a bunch of stuff because he won't go to sleep now. He's like, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, he's getting teeth now too. So he's like right up. Stupid cat. So yeah, I don't think I had a memory before age 3, and mine was that I had a pacifier. My parents convinced me they had thrown it away to a raccoon at the Cincinnati Zoo, and I could never chew on my pacifier. And I guess they said I threw a big enough fit that they gave it back to me. But I just remember them saying it was gone and missing. That was like my first memory. And it did mess up my teeth too, like kind of like crooked from chewing. And now I smoked 10 years and now I chew toothpicks. So it's like I've always had that kind of like,
fixation.
yep, exactly. And it's luckily the smoking ended, but it's tough. It was hard to quit smoking too. So, psychological dimension. So with communication, you start getting your comprehension before language. Like we'll talk to the 1.5-year-old and she'll get what we're saying when we're pointing at things and taking her around, and she gets it. But then at 3 years, you should be able to talk with people with objects not present. So your vocab's up to 900 words by the age of 3. And then by 6, you could have a vocabulary between 8,000 and 14,000 words. So you start getting universal grammar, which structural facets of language, ground rules are innate. Child's mind is not a blank slate. Individual languages are a single pattern variation. Actually, you can learn 2 languages a lot easier when you're younger. So becoming bilingual is way easier then. And it says language development appears to be encouraged by frequency and type of responses that adult speakers verbalize to children. There it is. Bilingualism does not cause speech or language problems. In fact, it may have cognitive advantages in the long term. And then language disorder occurs to about 3 or 5% of children, and half will outgrow it. Maybe like a speech impediment, or I got diagnosed with dyslexia, and that was at a late age. And that's always a tough one to overcome, or you just adapt. So here's the communication progression of language development. Your first words are at about 18, oh no, it has like 15 months, 16 months. And then I'm looking because my daughter's 15 months right now. Does that say 16 months? I don't even see it.
Yeah.
Because it's like 3-dimensional. They don't show it very well. Then your vocabulary spurt is about the age of 2. So that's going to be funny. I guess in like a month or 2, she's going to start talking more. She's saying balloon, and I have a friend who was worried his kid's not developing right because he's not talking yet, but this actually shows that it takes till you're like almost 2 for the vocabulary spurt, and then use of sentences might not happen until you're 3. My mom apparently cussed at my little brother, and that was his first word, and then she yelled at him. And she always denies this, but I'm rolling with it. So he did not say words till he was 3 or 4. He would go up to everything. And it's because his first word was like shit. So he's like, I didn't do that. I'm like, well, I think you did, but so attitudes, emotions, and regulation. So you don't really have the emotional regulation, obviously, but you can have emotional coaching, which is the process by which a parent or caregiver can assist the children in recognizing his emotions, and then uses the experience as a way for the child to learn about himself and problem solve. So, like self-soothing is something you even try to learn at a young age. If you're always comforted by your parents, you may never learn that. But people always get grateful that they have a thumb sucker because that's a way to self-soothe. Like instead of screaming and crying all the time, you can suck your thumb, calm yourself down, and go to sleep. So it's actually a good thing. Or I'm trying to think the other stuff they'll do. Even rocking stuff like, like kids will rock themselves till they're calm. So 5 steps: become aware of the child's emotion, then recognize the emotion as an opportunity for intimacy and teaching, listen empathetically, validating the child's feelings, help the child find words to label the emotion he is having, and then set limits while exploring strategies to solve the problem at hand. So that's a lot of steps, but if this can be trained into a child at a young age, they might not have that like explosive anger and temper tantrums that you see sometimes in like the store. I don't know if you've ever seen a kid just flipping out in the store as they want something, and it's actually kind of best to ignore them, but it's hard because it's embarrassing.
When my sister was like maybe like 2, like 1 and 2, when she was really talking, we would go to Meyer, and she would just always throw a tantrum, and she would always be like, I want my mom. And my mom would be like, and it got to the point, this one thing was like, excuse me, are you the mother? She's like, yes, I'm just trying to ignore her.
Right? She's like, is that kid homeless? Right. I know, especially while you're shopping, because I guess you could try to like just snap them up and take them out of there, like we're leaving. But if you gotta shop and buy food, they know that they got you hostage while you're shopping. Like crap. So, so some fears, greater imagination with symbolic thought. There could be night terrors where they hold in emotions when awake. And then preschoolers are at greater risk following a disaster or loss. Like if there's a hurricane or a tornado in your town, they can have terrors because of that. There is child PTSD symptom scale, and that's FOA et al. In 2001. For example, having feelings in your body when you think about or hear about the event. For example, feeling scared, angry, sad, or guilty, like things. I'm going to show a video. Hopefully, you guys haven't seen them yet. That kind of show kids' trauma at a young age because of foster care. Have you guys watched any videos on foster care? Hopefully not, because I hate showing double videos to you guys. But have you ever seen Removed? Okay, this is part 1. There is 3 parts to it. They are good, and it kind of shows the foster process and why they're removed and some of the emotion the kids go through. I usually always show that like the next class, and then there's even a part 3 about a kid that was taken.
Well, this would be like a form of ACEs, right?
It is. It really is. Yeah, some of the stuff you'll see in here, especially this kid too, which I'll probably show this one next time. The one reason I don't duplicate my videos though is because one of the students, she has me just before this class. She went to the career fair, but she has me just before this class. So I don't like showing the same videos if she saw them in intro to social work. I'm not going to show them in here. So, but we watched Removed part 3 in the last class, and this is Removed part 2. I'm sorry, 1 and 2 go together, and then 3 is separate. But this is definitely a form of ACEs, and you'll see a lot of ACEs. Probably count 5 or 6 in this video. It's kind of sad, actually. If you want me to, I can turn off the lights, or if it's okay. Okay.
so bad. It stops hurting at all. Until something makes you feel good. And then it all comes back. Every word. Every hurt. Every moment. How could you ever understand where I come from? Even if you ask, even if you listen, you will not really hear or see or feel. You don't remember my story. You haven't walked my path. You haven't seen what I see. My past defines me. This is who I am. I am unseen, unheard, unwanted. That is what I am. If even I am a thing. It seemed like the same thing that held me up forced me down. The world turned upside down, and order disappeared. Nothing was how it was supposed to be. And a heavy sadness filled my soul. Deeper and deeper I fell within myself. And nothing could draw me out. Trapped in the misery of lost in the sorrow of my soul. Unable to see the light. Unable to see the dawn. to feel, to hope, to dream. And they found the darkest days of my life had coming. Black clouds in my soul never stopped. It seemed like it was always night and nightmares, and never morning. It made me wonder why. But mostly try not to think about it. And try to get by. Try to survive. And all the other stuff seems so much for nothing compared to just wanting the most important things back again. The person you could see Mama smile again. And hear her sing that one favorite song that always calmed you down when things were all messed up. Or if you couldn't have her back, at least get to take care of your baby brother. Because you know he needs you. He's gonna be so scared all alone. And who's gonna hold his hand and whisper it'll be alright to him? And who will whisper it to me? I know I'm helpless, dependent, desperate. But what happens when those you need the most threaten your very existence? I've heard plenty of promises, and they all sound the same. Push hard enough, and sooner or later, they all prove to be empty. The sun comes up in the morning, but do you know where? Each place it's somewhere different. It's hard to find east when we keep moving around, but at least it comes. It always comes. I've come to depend on that. And slowly seasons changed around. And it seemed this time that maybe the world would not be pulled out from under me again. Feet safe, roots starting to grow. Little buds of hope formed. Slowly attempting to trust this new life.
So this is actually a good illustration of an adverse childhood experience reaction. When she gets this, I feel like they show it pretty well.
What I got for you?
So the trauma stored in your brain somewhere you don't know where it's stored comes out at odd times.
I wish someone would tell me it's going to be okay. That one day, maybe, I'll feel normal. And it won't always be the one. But I'll have a mommy who will hug me and be strong for me. Because maybe I can't do it all by myself. It's my past, my history, my story is not my fault. It's not because of me. It doesn't have to be what defines my future. I am loved. I am worthy of care. And that glimmer of light, it makes all the difference. The glimmers of light give me hope. And someday, my summer will come.
I know, yeah, they use it as a foster care training to like kind of like introduce you to maybe why kids are doing it. They're not mad at you or they don't hate you, but they've been traumatized. So like having a trauma informed care approach is really going to be important, and having them get to their therapy. We can watch the second half next class. Do you want to watch it now?
It's just so crazy that I have a research project that I have to do in my other class, and it's on foster care.
Okay.
So it's just crazy that all my classes are just tying in together. Like,
Right. Well, and if you want to use it for the presentation, you can turn it on. I just want to let you all, you juniors and seniors,
yeah.
I want you to get to the career fair.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I
And it
just came
ends-
back from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I just want to, as I know it's in a half an hour, if that, and or, work on your paper, if there's putting the trauma stuff in here. And we'll watch this. If you want to watch it immediately, that's fine, but it's just removed part 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about the paper, the 3 to 4 page paper about the ACEs.
Yes.
Okay, so just quickly, could you explain it one more time?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, basically, do you have the instructions pulled up or do you have them somewhere? Only because.
I have them, I know it's on D2L.
Right. So like after watching, because now I have a link to both of them, so you can watch either Paper Tigers or Resilience,
Okay.
and just like why a trauma-informed approach would be important as a, I don't want to say social worker, but as a healthcare worker, as a person, as a worker in the field, like psychology, social work. And you can pull some articles, and if it is foster care and you want to link classes together too, that's fine. But like why it's so important to use the trauma-informed approach, and if you have some articles that show why people with ACEs that get therapy are better off and like can do better in the future. So like they're not ruined forever. Like it's just that they have the opportunity to go to therapy and hopefully take it, because otherwise there is increased incidence of suicide, increased incidence. So I'm kind of leaving it wide open, but just kind of trauma in general and why it's important for us to learn it now. It is kind of a newer hot button topic. It's 10 or 20 years now, but they kind of ignored it until the past 20 years, like, oh, just tell them to shut up, or they're just a bad kid, or they got ADHD. It's like, no, they got trauma, and that's why they don't feel safe. That's why they're acting that way. So I'm leaving it wide open. I know that's maybe annoying, so I want to make sure that it's okay.
It's okay. I just want to make sure I'm writing enough, and I'm also not.
Right, yeah. So sometimes pulling articles and seeing programs that use trauma-informed care and how it was helpful and why. You can do, I'm sure you guys already, if somebody hasn't taught you this yet, definitely try this place. Have you gone here?
And if that doesn't work, you can try the library database through Central and stuff.
Okay.
I like this because it shows you how to cite them. It shows you how to do APA. And you can do like since 2017.
Okay.
You can pull it and download it and print it and own it. So if you just click, if it has that on the right side, you can get full text. It teaches you for the end how then to cite it. This might be very large, so I'm going to skip downloading, but you could download it. And then here's APA. So it even tells you, and if you cite them in text, you can say Jen Wright, 2018, says the future of healing is trauma-informed care, and here's why, and then like do quotes and stuff. So that way you know how to write a research paper for grad school and stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, this thing's like been a savior. That's one way I did my dissertation. So.
I kind of wish they had more school after like we have to do there.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
They had what was it, something in Kentucky and then the other one was University of Cincinnati.
Really? Okay, so I went to University of Kentucky for my MSW, and you're right, they should have more, because,
Right, because I feel like that's just, it's pretty much the same as your career. Like if you're going like straight from undergrad to graduate, you know.
it is.
Mhm.
It is, yeah, sorry. Well, yeah, if you're able to get back or start on the paper, either or. I just wanted to give you guys time to do that, and then see you next week.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, for sure. And feel free to email any questions or anything if stuff comes up.